Though every sex expert and sex manual and sex partner will tell you that what's in the pants is not the only place you should focus your attention, when it gets right down to it, that's where pretty much all of us want a sexual experience to end up. It's where almost every orgasm originates, and the truth is, partners often just don't know enough about their lover's junk to be able to make best use of it. We'll do the penis first because, frankly, it's the easiest to cover. Penises come in many shapes and sizes. The average penis length, according to research done by Lifestyle Condoms, is about 5.8 inches, and the majority of that average measures between 5.5 and 6.3 inches. The same study found the average girth to be about 4.9 inches, which is about that big around. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, size does matter, but not in a one-size-fits-all kind of way. Because women's bodies are just as individual as men's, some women can't take an above average or even an average penis. Some can't take overly thick penises, and yes, some don't feel very fulfilled by average or below average penises. But in one study, only 21% of the women interviewed rated length as important, and 33% rated girth as important. In another study, 84% of women were satisfied with their partner's penis size. Only 14% wanted their partner to be larger, and 2% wanted their partner to be smaller. In that study, a much higher percentage of women were satisfied with their partner's penis size compared to the percentage of men who were not satisfied with their own penis size. And that was about 84% of satisfied women to 55% of satisfied men. The findings of the study basically concluded that many men are needlessly worrying about the size of their own penis. As for shapes, they're as different as the men carrying them. The most basic difference in the look of a penis is whether or not it's been circumcised. Since almost all cases of circumcision happen well before the man is sexually active, discussing the benefits and drawbacks is pretty irrelevant here, but I'll probably talk about it when I give my talk to parents. The basic thing to know about the difference between cut and uncut penises is that there's a difference between the way each experiences sexual stimulation. The foreskin, the part that gets removed during circumcision, creates its own mild lubricant and allows for greater sensation during sexual activity as it rubs more efficiently against the frenulum, which is the piece of soft skin on the underside of the penis, which is where the foreskin attaches to the glans, or the head. On circumcised men, the frenulum is more easily reached, but not quite as easily stimulated. Think of the frenulum basically as the man's clit. It's the most sensitive part of his junk and the part that is largely responsible for the male orgasm. Even beyond just the cut versus uncut visual, though, each penis is decidedly different. Some are really small when they're not erect, but grow into these monstrous erections. Some are about the same size, soft or hard. Some point up, some stick straight out, some hang down, some curve to the right, some corkscrew. The list really goes on. Just know that each penis you encounter will be at least slightly different from the last, which is true of each of the men they're attached to as well. And last but not least are the balls. Women have no real frame of reference for the testicles. We know it hurts for guys to get kicked there, and ladies, do not kick a man in the balls, but we have no real way to appreciate the impact your nuts have on your experience. Testicles are pretty interesting from an outsider's perspective. They come in just as many different shapes and sizes as the penis, from big and dangling to tight, close to the body sorts. So when it comes to the balls, guys, please tell your partners what you want done with them. Most women will default to just ignoring them, unless we know you want something else. As strange and often fascinating as your penis is, your nuts are just pretty much a complete mystery to us. Speaking of mystery, there's a lot of mystique surrounding the vagina, and not for no reason. Unlike the guys, women's parts are all tucked up and hidden, and it takes us squatting naked over a mirror for us to really get a good look at what we've got going on. So we'll start at the top. The clitoris, or clitoris, however you want to say it, is that tiny little nub at the very top of the vagina. And on most women, it's tucked up under the clitoral hood. It is very similar in its own way to the guy's frenulum, and the hood is basically useful in providing the same kind of smooth friction that a man's foreskin does to produce orgasm. In most ways, a clit is really just like a tiny little penis. It becomes erect and engorged with blood just like a dick. It just all happens back up inside instead of right out in the open. As I've said before and will say again, the clit is the key to practically every female orgasm, but the actual little nub itself is extraordinarily tender. The tiny little glands of the clitoris, which is that part sticking out that you can see, has as many nerve endings in it as the whole of the penis, all concentrated on a space just a few millimeters around. So finessing the line between stimulating and overstimulating the clit is pretty tricky. The best way to do this is try to mimic how your partner masturbates. And if that's not an option, just start slow and ask her to guide you. Things like harder, longer, slower, and other simple instructions are a relatively efficient way to hit the sweet spot with your tongue or fingers. The rest of the outside of the vagina has its own share of nerve endings, and it also fills with blood when a woman is aroused. When a guy gets aroused, his penis gets hard. Pretty simple, then he's ready to go. When a woman gets aroused, a couple other things have to happen to get her as ready to go as the dude. The blood has to fill through the whole of her vagina, both inside and out. Her clit needs to sport an erection, and her Bartholin gland needs to start secreting the lubrication that makes her wet. The lack of any of those triggers doesn't actually necessarily mean that the woman's not aroused, though. It's a slightly more complicated mechanism than a man's erection, and sometimes the mechanism breaks down. This is not necessarily a sign that she isn't into it or that you're doing anything wrong. It usually just means that her body needs a little bit of help to participate in the goings-on, often in the form of something basic like porn or lube or maybe just 15 more minutes of foreplay. And now that you know what the basic parts are and what they do, you can set about exploring them with your partners and learning how to actually use what you know to your and their advantage. Now, everyone processes these stimuli differently, so even gays and lesbians don't get off the hook on this one. Just because the parts may look somewhat similar to yours does not in any way mean they'll respond in the same way. But regardless of who you're partnered with, you have a responsibility to explore your lover's body and find out what he or she likes. I've armed you with a basic knowledge of physiology here, but sadly, I can't give you the telepathy it would require for you to use it perfectly without getting feedback from your partner. It all goes back to communication, even if that communication comes out in screams, grunts, moans, or whimpers. One final note that I'll come back to probably a lot in the future. Ladies, don't fake an orgasm. Just don't. It's true that most guys can't tell, though I will be giving a few tips to the gents on how to spot a real one in a future webcast. Honestly, it doesn't matter if they're able to tell or not. Faking an orgasm, A, robs you of potential real enjoyment, B, lies to the guy, and C, teaches bad habits. If you fake it, and he didn't do anything to earn it, he might not know, but he certainly won't learn how to help the next girl, or you, the next time. So go, find these spots. Play with them. Have fun, and good luck.